Hey, thank you, folks. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you. Awesome. Super. Some of you who've been for past Streamer Live sessions know the drill. Quick introduction. I'm Laks Narayan, a co-founder and the CEO here at Streamer Live. Very thrilled to demo it, especially if this is your first time experiencing Streamer Live. And those of you who have seen it in action before probably know the drill. Just type in the chat, tell us where you're joining from, and let's see that map light up in real time. So let us know where you're joining us from. And I'm going to play pilot and literally fly around and just see who we've got over here. We get Joaquin in Arizona. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Joaquin. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit because we've got a few more. We got Makeda in the US, and therefore it's taken Washington, D.C. I think I always found that interesting. Take the capital in case it's a country that people mention. Dr. Byrne in Tampa, Florida. We got a lot of people in the East Coast. We got Tina here in Jersey and Darren here in Jackson. And to fly across the pond to see who we got in Europe, I'm actually going to change the visualization here and use a globe, which is really my favorite visualization over here. Wow, you actually got Florida at the same temperature. Okay, Florida and Jersey are almost the same temperature. That's interesting. All right, who do we have across the pond? Okay, we got a few friends across in Europe. We got Neil in Portugal. Okay, you take the prize for hottest place so far, Neil. 93 Fahrenheit. What's that in centigrade? 34. That's pretty hot for Portugal, right?
It is pretty hot for now. Yep.
And we got Said in a much cooler climate at Dortmund. And a quick shout out to Neil and Said, who are old friends, very, very streamer live, familiar, and very kindly agreed to join us on this debut session of what we hope is going to be a weekly thing where we demo streamer live every week, once a week on Zoom and once a week on Teams. Showing that team sessions can actually be fun. Yes, it is possible. And you will see that on Thursday if you join us for the Teams one. So every Tuesday on Zoom, every Thursday on Teams is the plan right now. And doing this one with a little help from our friends, both Neil and Said are power users of Stream Alive, very, very adept people in the virtual presentation and production space. Neil, Said, a quick introduction perhaps from each of you.
Go ahead, Said.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Said from Germany. I call myself the facilitator, and I'm very, very passionate about how to make, especially online meetings, more like live streams, more engaging, more fun, and yeah, that's why I'm also here always. Yeah, eager to see how people use these tools and yeah, how fun they can be in a Zoom meeting.
And I'm Neil Farmans. I basically help people set up the video production. I'm an Ecamm user, so specifically using Ecamm on the Mac and using Streamer Live for all my sort of audience interactions and so on. I'm in a different room than I'm normally in today because, as Lux pointed out, it's 92 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. So this is the room with the air conditioning. So that's why I'm in here. But nice to see everybody as well. Great to be here.
Thank you. And also, I should also add that I keep learning a lot of things from Neil and Said and other friends like Martin. So, for example, the lights that you see behind are a recent thing now, thanks to Neil and Martin saying that my room and where I present from, they said it in the most polite way possible, saying it looks horrible. And they actually helped me transform it and make it look a lot better. Sides helped me actually use a Stream Deck, learn how to use OBS, and the waiting room video was because Syed gave me a lecture on how I'm not utilizing the assets at our disposal and should be showing better things on the waiting room than an ad for Zoom. So eternally grateful to these gents for all their inputs, tips, and for the model support and support for today's session. Thank you. Speaking of today's session, one of the big things we believe in at Stream Alive is doing a lot more things improvised, just literally riffing it. So the three of us caught up 5 minutes before this and said, hey, we're just going to riff it. We're going to do a demo and just jump in as and when we want. It's going to be like all of you are in on a conversation among friends, talking about and passionate about engagement and making live sessions a lot better and a lot more fun. The flow is going to be kind of like this. We're going to take you through Streamer Live, where I'm using Streamer Live to demo Streamer Live. So extreme dog fooding over here. Actually run through this presentation, which is going to be a quick introduction, a few interactions, we'll riff it, we'll play around, and finally we have a quiz with 4 questions. And that's our most recent feature. Hopefully it doesn't break. We're going to test it out in real time and see how that functions as well. So thank you everybody for helping us test a whole bunch of things too. And then we'll show you how it's kind of made. We'll show you very quickly what happens behind the scenes and how easy it is to make these interactions. And finally, we'll give you a preview of what's coming next, which is how we're putting all of this into PowerPoint, and then jump into questions. And we'll try and wrap all of these in 45 minutes. So we give you back 15 minutes of the time you'd scheduled for this. But if you have any questions, just put them in the chat anytime. We'll jump into questions towards the end of the session or intermittently. Like I said, we're just riffing this. Any questions, anytime, just put it in the chat and we will intermittently address questions. But very quickly, what we believe in at Streamer Live, and that's incidentally, Neil and I are kind of twinning at this point. We both have our Unmute the Audience t-shirts, 2 different designs though. So unmute the audience is really our philosophy. It's okay to unmute an audience of 2 or 3 or 5 people, or what do you do when you have 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 people? You cannot literally unmute the audience. And that's what we aim to solve. We want to make presentations, conversations, and make one-to-many, like this session, feel a lot more one-to-one by giving the audience a voice, right? Through chat, as you've seen over here. So just want to introduce some of the Streamer Live interactions and get to know who's in the room as well a little bit. So quick poll over here. And if you used PowerPoint in the last 12 months, just type the number 1. If you use Keynote as well, type the number 1, 2 or 1, and then type 2. Just trying to get a sense of which ones of these are popular, are more frequent, what do people use a lot more of. So in my case, for example, I use PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, and Gamma. So I'm going to try 1, 2, 3, 4 and see if that helps too. So you could enter it in multiple ways. It accepts commas, it accepts and. Just go ahead and put that in. And as you do that, I'm just going to eyeball the answers. Not surprisingly, a lot of people who've used PowerPoint, a lot of the folks on Macs, especially using Keynote, Google Slides catching up over there. I almost feel like a commentator in a horse race, right? What do you use the most, Neil? I see you're there on PowerPoint. I don't know if you're there in some of the other ones.
Well, I use PowerPoint a lot because of my clients use PowerPoint, so it's used through osmosis, I guess. But my sort of main tool for creating my own presentations and things has been Gamma, and I've been using that now for quite a while, probably about 6 to 8 months, because it's just an easier way of creating a really nice looking presentation without too much effort, as long as you've got the outline. So yeah, Gamma's my tool of choice at the moment.
And Said, I know you're not a fan of almost all of the presentation software, but I saw your name out there. So do you actually use them, or is it in a client scenario? Yeah. What's your?
I told you this last time, but nobody believed me. Thought it was a joke. I actually got a PowerPoint license, I think last week, so I can try things out, and not because I like it, but staying like just knowing what people talk about and trying out something. It was my favorite tool in the past in corporate time because there's so many things you could do with it. But yeah.
Interesting. So yeah, and not surprisingly, I think we have PowerPoint up there. And I had a slide here. I think I pulled it off by mistake, but it's been 38 years since we've had PowerPoint, right? And that's quite shocking when I think of it. I mean, 1987 is when PowerPoint was launched, and it was launched for boardrooms, classrooms, and courtrooms, which is kind of where it caught fire in the beginning. And like a square peg in a round hole, we just bunged it into online sessions right now. And it's used in Zoom and WebEx. I think it's probably the #1 shared app on Zoom, of course, on Teams and on WebEx and every single meeting platform, right? Yeah. And Neil, you alluded to this. Apps like Gamma greatly help creating slides. I mean, the format is taken care of. The content, at least the starting point, is taken care of. Or do you also use PowerPoint with Copilot? Just curious.
No, I've never really used PowerPoint recently to create anything. It's always been Gamma. Just if somebody sends me a PowerPoint slide, then to incorporate into their production, then I have to sort of use it. So, like Saeed, I have a Microsoft license, but only because I have to, not because I necessarily want to.
Sense. Right. So yeah, it helps you with great slides, but I think the core problem still remains, which is that like I've been doing in a couple of slides here, is that most presentations are one-way monologues, right? They're presenters usually going talk, 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 slide, 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 whether it's something they created or got help creating with a Gamma or a co-pilot. And that I think is the opportunity, making it a conversation like we've done in a couple of slides, which were populated and powered by the audience. And that, for the folks who are not very familiar with Streamer Live, is really the gist of what we do. We use AI in some interesting ways to turn chat. In this case, it's on Zoom. Day after tomorrow, it's going to be on Teams, and maybe sometime we'll also start doing it on. We support Google Meet, but we're not doing these weekly sessions on Google Meet because it's mostly Teams and Zoom that most people are using us on. We do have some Google Meet users as well, but the common thing to Teams and Zoom and Google Meet and everything is that they have chat. And that really was a big insight we had, saying here is a very powerful engagement tool right under our noses. It's the simplest instruction we can give people, put it in the chat. And if AI and technology can do the heavy lifting to give shape to human voices, maybe we can shape and move and choral those voices as a collective view of the audience, which, if you think of it, is no different from a presenter saying, hey, raise your hands if you agree, and saying, oh, 2/3 of the room agrees with me. It's visual interaction and visualizing what the audience is saying that allows the presenter, like we've been trying to do so far, to go listen, talk, and literally have a conversation, right? Quick segue into why we created Streamer Live. It actually started during the pandemic. I was, for various reasons, including dealing with a family emergency at that time, on a break. And I used that free time to write this book, which is in my head. Shameless plug, here it is. It's called Name, Place, Animal Thing. It's not a children's coloring book, even if it looks like one. It's more of a fable for adults. But the reason I bring up the book is I binged on all these online courses to learn how to write, edit, and market a book. 6 courses delivered over 56 online lectures, mostly on Zoom, some on Google Meet, a couple of them on Facebook Live, and at least one on YouTube Live, because the person didn't want to pay for a Zoom webinar license with 1,000 people. Class sizes from 11 to 1,200 people. And one of 3 things would happen. Either the presenter would go talk, 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 talk. People would wait for the recording and watch it later at their own time at 1.5 times the speed. Or the presenter would ask questions like, hey, where's everybody joining from? Like we did a little earlier over here, and then just ignore everybody's responses and just eyeball 1 or 2 people and say, oh, we got Neil in Portugal, we got Said in Dortmund, and then ignore everybody else who'd enthusiastically put an answer out there, which is kind of weird. You don't ask people a question and ignore their answers, right? But we do it in a one-to-many scenario because, hey, what else can we do, right? Or the third, which in my opinion is the most self-sabotaging, is encourage people to whip out their phones, scan a QR code out there, and consciously and deliberately send them away from their laptop screens into their phones to type the answer to a question like, what did you have for breakfast? And guess what? Good luck trying to compete with TikTok and the news and a whole bunch of other things that are clamoring for people's attention over here. So why would you sabotage your own sessions by encouraging people to get onto their mobile phones, knowing that that's a recipe for distraction, right? And that's kind of what led to the whole idea of using chat, because in all those instances, all those 56 sessions, the chat was on fire, right? Said, I know you do a lot of stuff with the chat. Even before Streamer Live, you used to visualize the chat, bring it in front, you used to use Social Stream Ninja and stuff. And we just love, but your and Neil's thoughts on the whole philosophy of using chat as a vehicle for engagement.
As I said before, so for me, it's I try to adapt the things that I see streamers do, and they don't have the back channel. People cannot unmute even if they would like to. And I mean, we kind of get used to it with chatting and DMing and messaging and things. And I think it's a pretty easy way to give people a voice, because I wouldn't unmute myself if I have like a comment, but as you can see, I'm writing the whole time in the chat because it's easy. You can ignore it if you don't like, but if every time I have like a bad joke, I unmute myself, it would like crash the whole session. Some people are introverts and they don't want to speak out loud, or that it takes them a minute to think first before, and then the moment is over where you ask the question. So that's why I like to use the chat a lot. And of course, if you visualize it on the screen and say, "Oh my God, my face popped up," or my question is actually on the screen, which is like witchery. Even in 2000, like in 2025, it's still something that we are not used to seeing in a Zoom meeting. I think you can create some magic and encourage people to communicate more with the host and among each other.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think the point you mentioned is something very salient, right? Because people are introverts, some people are extroverts, but in today's world, every one of us is an extrovert. We're very comfortable putting things on text and might as well leverage that, right? Neil, I know you do a lot of that for PowerPoint on Teams, and you got a lot of corporate clients for whom you do productions for a lot of large all hands. Do you see the chat being equally active in those scenarios as well, or does it require a lot of prompting? What has your experience been?
I think it's getting better now in terms of the live events that I help produce for corporate clients, because they will either be in a hybrid event where they're actually an in-person speaking, but then there's people joining online like we're doing today on Zoom. But a lot of the time they're actually doing their workshops virtually. And to Saeed's point, it's very unusual to see Q&A coming up not in the right-hand screen as we're seeing today in Zoom, for example, to be populated visually on the screen so everybody can see the question. And it's really encouraging, I think, for people to see their actual name coming up on the screen with the question being asked. So I'm seeing it a lot more now, particularly with the advent of using tools like OBS, Social Stream Ninja, Ecamm with chat, and with StreamAlive. A lot of my customers are really using StreamAlive as well to get that audience participation, just sort of breaking down some barriers to start with, asking those questions. The live polls, clouds, and things that you're going to show today are really a fantastic way of actually encouraging people to interact with the content. And it helps the presenter to see whether they're getting any positive feedback from the messages, whether the messages are resonating with them and stuff. So I think a lot more people are actually doing this type of thing. And I think tools like StreamAlive are really key to get people involved and encouraged.
Thank you. And go ahead, Syed, please.
So, and you know what? Like nowadays, we all record our sessions and we share them afterwards. I mean, some people might watch them, most of them probably won't. But if you look back like a few years, if I write something in the chat, I mean, maybe you say, "Oh, Said wrote something in the chat," and you laugh about it, or you answer the question without reading it out loud, or you where you're from, and you can see all people typing it, but I can only see them if I'm live. So because the chat in Zoom is not recorded on screen. And this way, so I mean, it's the closest you can get to attending live if you can actually see what was not communicated verbally, like from the chat and transformed into whatever it is visually on the screen. So yeah, just closing the gap at least as far as possible for those who cannot attend for any reasons.
Absolutely, and I think we all subscribe to the fact that we need to have lesser one-way presentations because life's too short for that. And hey, if it's going to be a one-way presentation, might as well be a recording that you send across, right? Why would you need people to attend in that case? And it always rankles me when people say, join us for this interactive session. And what they mean by interactive is 2 polls and a Q&A at the end of it, because that's not interactive, right? So yeah, I mean, just to reiterate our ethos, it's stop one-way presentations and do that by unmuting the audience and unmute the audience by making the chat stream alive like we've done literally over here. Right? So I would love to actually test out our most recent feature, which is the quiz feature. So what we're going to do is actually play a little round with a few questions over here. We're going to have 4 questions. Each one has 4 choices. And, there's going to be a leaderboard at the end of each question that shows how people stack up. There are points for answering faster. So yes, you could wait and see what everybody else answers, but if you were to answer faster, you would get more points than you would otherwise. So no pressure. This is work in progress. All feedback on it is welcome. And Neil, Syed, you've given us some amazing feedback already from having seen an early cut of the quiz in terms of timers and options and all of those. And those are already being factored. So let's see it in action. it's going to work beautifully or fail spectacularly because it just got pushed, but there's only one way to find out. Let's play with it. All right. So, okay, that's the first thing. It's actually breaking the font over here, as you can see. So there is an issue, but I'll just read out the question. In the UK, emissions in 2024 dropped to under 50% of 1990 levels. What target is this helping them move towards? A 30% cut by 2030. Option 1, net zero by 2050. Option 3 is carbon neutrality by 2040. And option 4 is a 20% drop in fossil fuel use by 2028. So just choose one of the. Okay, we've got some people who've chosen option 2. We've got, I'm trying to move some things around at my end so I can see things. So excuse me over here. Whoops. Okay. Still sharing my screen?
Showing your Reddit.
Oh, sorry.
WhatsApp.
I knew I was doing something wrong there. Okay. Note to self, close all windows before these presentations. Lesson learned. Okay, so all right, so you got 6 responses. That is the correct answer, net zero by 2050. So yes, right, does it show who got it right? I know we were planning to show that down the line, but right now it doesn't. One of the plans is to show who got it right as an option and have a few more, sounds and games. So this is the first cut. As you can see, basic things like the font wrap for the options is breaking up. It's also one of the first interactions that allows you to have an image side by side and auto changes the layout. Obviously has some work because all my options are a little too big over here. And we have Syed here on the top. Oh, okay. Are you the only one who got it right, Syed? Wow. All right.
He was. Yeah, and it's not rigged. So we're just saying that right now. He was the only one that got it right, and he's not even in the UK. So there you go. Great.
All I know is like this net zero thing is a big thing. That's why I guessed.
It's a good guess.
All right. By the way, part of the quiz is trying to understand the options and reading them. You get extra points if you can read them ahead of me shouting them out. So the Netherlands, they banned smartphones in schools, and one of these things happened. Lower school attendance, increased cyberbullying, improved concentration and socializing among students, and more homework complaints from parents. All right, we got 3 responses. I'm going to wait for a couple more responses to come in. We got 5. And we should have a counter here very soon that counts down and tells you how much time it is and then automatically reveals the answer, but work in progress. And yes, indeed, all of you got that right. But let's see who got it right faster and if Said is still on top. I think Said is on top because good heads up from the first question, but Tina answered that pretty fast and is catching up. Okay, so this is nice. Again, I think we need a few more, sounds and the leaderboards moving and a lot more of an audiovisual experience here, right? Should make it more fun.
We mentioned before about the Jeopardy countdown sound, so maybe that's what you need.
Oh yeah, in our last meeting, thanks to you, we actually watched half an hour of Jeopardy together. So what did you do in that very constructive meeting? We watched Jeopardy together.
There you go.
It's research.
Inspiration.
Research, yes. Okay, this is pretty interesting. There's a new device that preserves donor organs, and it won a major award because it replicates conditions inside the body. What is the advantage it has? The first one, stores organs at much colder temperatures. Second, reduces the need for donor organs. Third, preserves them longer and more safely. And the fourth, reduces the cost of transplants. Oh, you got 6 answers over here, and we got the majority of them for number 4. We've got a very erudite audience over here because that is indeed the right answer. And let's see whether the leaderboard. Whoa, Tina, that's why the flex. Okay. Sayed, my friend, you're losing your spot. But thank you for helping us prove it is not rigged.
But still top 10, so I think that's fine.
Still top 10 among, yes. I think there's one last question. And this one I don't need to read out. I'll let you look at it. Which city's river was clean enough to allow safe swimming? European city, needless to say, with all the options over there. Oops. I don't know why I keep doing this. 1 second, folks. Give me use this opportunity to.
Whatever safe enough means, I still wouldn't do it.
What was that again, Syed?
Whatever safe enough means. I remember, was it in the Olympics in France or wherever, where they had to do something with the Seine because it was not safe for all the swim sports there, and it was like a big thing. Yeah.
It's whichever river the rats will decide to go in, right? I think that's the option. So, yeah.
Oh, it was Paris. Oh my God.
It was Paris, yes.
Yeah.
Did you not choose Paris?
I don't know. I just guessed. Maybe I did it unconsciously. Let me see. Oh no, I chose London. See,
Yeah,
I didn't have the explanation for it.
And Tina, Dr. Byrne just beat you there in the last question. So congratulations, Dr. Byrne. If you had sound and stuff, you'd have confetti and things coming soon. But you just about beat Tina in that last question. And yeah, this is actually, I think, the first time we're demoing the quiz feature publicly. Thrilled about it because it adds a lot more gamification to these sessions. Yes, there is some work to do, and in terms of some basic things, and also making it more fun. But looking forward to this, right? I'm going to now switch tracks and actually show you how we created this on Streamer Live very, very quickly. But first, I'm just going to switch tracks here and see if there are any questions. And is this option available now for presentation? Was a question from Darren. Darren, I assume you're talking about the quiz, but feel free to unmute yourself and just elaborate on that question, please.
Good morning. I'm Darren Franklin, creator of F42 Empowerment. I've been doing Stream Alive now for a few months since seeing it with John Chen. And yeah, I just wanted to know if the feature that you were displaying that we were just engaged with, if it was available now to integrate into presentations.
It absolutely is. So we just recently launched it. Didn't make a huge announcement about it. I think we just mentioned that we are adding it on, and while we are solving some of these teething things. So it's a bit of it's a new feature in beta, but it's available to everybody. Absolutely.
And can I ask another question that ties into that? And this is probably for the audience of presenters. Most times I'm my only production person right now, so I use Canva. Does anybody else have any tips on how to use Stream Alive when you're your only production person and you're presenting in person, but using it for engagement?
Neil said you do a lot of solo production work for your sessions. Any tips on that? And we will be covering the PowerPoint embed, which I think answers that question to some extent. But any tips on that?
Do you want to go first, Saeed, or do you want me to go?
I was just wondering, was the question about in person or?
I think it's when you're the solo person who's actually delivering the presentation and then driving Streamer Live. Is that correct, Darren?
Yes, that's correct. And most times it's an in-person presentation, live in person with an audience.
Cool.
Yeah, in person, I'm kind of out, but of course, Lux will show like the PowerPoint presentation integration later on. However, there are also like ways to do it the other way around if you want to use like the old-fashioned Stream Live, where you can integrate your presentations or your slide inside of Stream Live, so that you just have a flow. Right? You just go to the next slide, and it can be an activity, or it can be just information you're sharing, or just a placeholder, or just an image. So at least you don't have the hassle of, oh, I have to switch between like the interaction, and then I have to go to my PowerPoint and pop that up. But I think this will also be eliminated pretty pretty soon. But however, because I think you mentioned Canva, you can export everything we have in Canva as PNGs, as images, and then place the images where you would like them to appear in your flow of your shot. I hope this helps a little bit. Or how about you, Neil? I think you.
Yeah, I have a couple of clients that do in-person workshops using StreamAlive, and not to steal Lux's thunder, he'll talk about some integration in a minute, but prior to that integration, this lady was basically running her PowerPoint just as a stand-up with a clicker, going through the various slides, and then when it came to the audience interaction piece, she would just have a slide that sort of said, now we're going to go over to StreamAlive. She would just switch tab on her browser and then use the audience interaction, scanning the QR code with the phone and then having the audience interaction do it that way. So they would all be able to scan the interaction using the QR code. It would pop up on the phone and then they could interact with StreamAlive live within the actual audience itself. So that's how she was doing it before. Again, all one person running that as well. So I'm not sure if that helps, but hopefully what Lux is going to show soon will potentially eliminate some of that friction caused through having to switch out of PowerPoint and then back in, for an example.
And like Neil said, Darren will just show a couple of instances on how we do it with StreamAlive right now. But Neil, while you still got the mic, why don't you pick one of these things that you're going to use to create a StreamAlive presentation right now? Which of these should we go with?
Wow, okay. Knitting and stargazing.
Are we doing both of them or one of them?
I thought it was something that you did together. Let's
do them together. Let's see what comes up.
Let's do them together. Let's do them together because why not?
Together.
Because
okay.
you could be knitting and stargazing at the same time. It's it's a peaceful hobby. I mean, especially if you don't have to look at what you're knitting. Why not?
So, Joaquin, apologies if we butcher your hobbies, but we're taking knitting and stargazing at the same time. And we're going to use that. So I'm switching tracks here to show you what's happening on the StreamAlive side of things. So if you see here, I'm just going to refresh my page. And this is my StreamAlive dashboard. And this is the presentation I've been taking you through. And Darren, to your question, it's as simple, I think, as creating the presentation first. Like Said said, you can export Canva into PNG and you can import your PNGs or PDFs in here into StreamAlive. So that's really what I did here. I have all these static slides that I imported into StreamAlive. And between the static slides, I added these interactions, which is as simple as saying I want to add an interaction and I just choose what interaction I want. And to your question, yes, the quiz is there as well now. This is the most recent addition, and I just add what slides I want. And I've got an interactive presentation over here, which has my talking slides, my listening slides, and so on and so forth. I've chosen a theme here, which is a StreamAlive gradient theme that I obviously prefer, but you could choose anything you wanted to echo your brand and make it look different in line with what your brand colors are, right? So this is my presentation. And I know what interactions I want to ask in this specific instance, but sometimes you don't, and people need a bit of help coming up with interesting interactions. And that's kind of where StreamAlive's AI is really, really helpful, because I could say I want to create a new presentation and I want some AI help coming up with interesting questions. What is it again, Neil? Knitting and stargazing, right?
Yes.
All right. So
two things I think I should start doing. Absolutely.
We're doing a workshop on knitting and stargazing. And who's the audience for this? We can create a new audience.
Astrophotographers and grandmothers. I don't know. Something like that.
Knitters and stargazers would be my guess as a non-English speaker.
They're very, very patient people who don't need to look at their hands while they're doing things. That's the audience.
That's the audience. Very patient people.
Monotasker, right? People who don't need 30 things at once.
All right, let's see what comes up.
I'm extremely curious about this, guys.
So are we. So it's coming up, it says, okay, which country do you think has the best night sky for stargazing? So instead of saying where are you joining from, I think that's a nice question to ask. What emotion does knitting under the stars evoke for you, right? In a sentence or two, how do you find inspiration for the night sky for your knitting projects? And just in the interest of time, I'm going to select all of these, add them into my presentation. And I've got a presentation here with 15 listening slides. If I had beautiful slides from Canva or somewhere else on knitting and stargazing, I could import those slides in. I don't have them, so I'm not going to import anything. And at this point, all I need to do to present this is simply say, I want to present this on Zoom, in which case it's going to replace the current presentation I have, which I'm not going to do, and run this on Zoom. Again, each interaction powered by the chat in Zoom. It's as simple as that. I'm curious to see the kind of answers one might get for this. So what I'm going to do here is also move to some of the other interactions. In one word, what emotion does knitting under the stars evoke for you? I'm going to click on preview here, which gives me a preview of hopefully the kind of answers that I might expect in a session like this. So, you're going to say, okay, what does it evoke? And people are going to hopefully give you answers like this, like serenity and nostalgia and wonder and awe. And if I wanted to visualize these, I could also, I could summarize people's answers. I could visualize people's answers, have a lot of fun with the responses that people give. And Streamlive simulates the entire session. So you could say, if I would ask this question, what kind of responses might I get? It's giving you the kind of responses you would get. So it gives you a flavor of how beautiful your session can look with making it interactive and asking these questions. Of course, you could tweak the questions to something that is more appropriate over here, right? But Joaquin, curious, what do you think of these questions to teach knitting and stargazing?
Actually worked better than I thought, guys.
Good to know. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's good when it does. And just the last part, while I still got the web application open, is that at the end of a session, you get a ton of analytics. So actually, if I were to end the session that we just ran over here, by the way, I could also do fun things like, hey, let's pick someone at random. I asked Neil to pick one of the hobbies and he picked knitting and stargazing. But if I didn't want to ask Neil, or I didn't have Neil here, I could just do something like this, say, spin a wheel with everybody who answered this question. And it says it's me. And I get to choose what I mentioned, which I think was origami, and you'd go with origami in that case. So you could do it in multiple ways. And Darren, to your question earlier, as you can see, I'm running this solo right now. Streamalive is designed for solo presenters. And the one thing you do need to do is create your presentation or riff on it. Like, this was not a question I had. We just added it in here. Neil, Said, do you think it's a good time to switch tracks into showing the PowerPoint thing? I know you folks have seen it a couple of times, but I'm super thrilled with the way it's shaping up.
Yeah, sure. There was a quick question. I think Said answered it from Dr. Andrew Byrne. Can you use Streamalive when you are not the primary host of a Zoom session?
Absolutely can. In the case of a Zoom session or a meeting, there's a bot that tries to join the meeting, and you just need to let the host of the meeting know that there's a bot joining and they need to admit it. So in the case of Zoom, it's especially easy to do it even if you're not the primary person. And I'm glad you asked that question, because something we won't have the time to get into is that we also have a Zoom application. So some people prefer to use the Streamalive app in Zoom just to have a full self-contained Zoom experience. So one way of using it is by sharing screen and the web browser like I've been doing over here. But you could also go and install the Streamalive app in Zoom, which actually is the #1 AI app on the Zoom App Store among 3,000 apps. It's also the #1 employee engagement app and the #1 app for education, which really is our sweet spot. Employee engagement, education, and using AI to give shape to human voices. Right? If you haven't tried the Zoom app, I would encourage you to play around with that as well. Different people have different preferences. Some like to use the Zoom app more than the web app. Some like the web app. It just depends on what you're more comfortable with. And if that wasn't enough, we decided to confuse and complicate everybody's life by giving a third option, which I'm super excited about. Again, not publicly available. It's in beta right now. And this is, the #1 feedback we got from people was, sometimes I don't want to get my slides into Streamalive. So in this instance, for example, remember we created this presentation here and I told you need to import your slides. But the #1 feedback we got from a lot of people, especially in training, is, hey, I've already got this PowerPoint deck. Can Streamalive come into my PowerPoint deck? And so far the answer was no, but now that's kind of what we're changing. So let me show you how that's going to work. This is the deck I took you through, but the PowerPoint version. So I got a bunch of PowerPoint slides here, and let's say I want to make this interactive. What I would do in this case is simply add an empty slide. So I'm just going to add a blank slide over here. And in that slide, I can add a Stream Alive add-in. It's not public. As you can see, it says demo and private. It's on request only at this point. Neil, did you finally get access to yours? I know you had some hiccups with your SSO setting on that. And
I haven't checked actually today, but I can have a quick look whilst you're doing that.
let us know, please, if you haven't gotten it yet, but you're among the first people to try it out. But the end result is something like this, where it brings Stream Alive into your slide. So I've got a slide here which has this interaction. And I could insert an interaction ad hoc. I could say I want to add a slide here asking people where they're joining from, right? Or I could access the presentations I've created. So we just created the presentation on knitting and stargazing. So if I wanted to pull in a question from the knitting and stargazing thing, like which city or country do you think has the best night sky for stargazing? Forget for a moment why I'm doing it in the middle of a Stream Alive presentation, but assuming I wanted to do that, I simply need to add this slide to my PowerPoint. Right? And if I wanted to add multiple slides, all I would do at this point is say, where is that? I'm still getting, I would duplicate the slide. And maybe after this, I want one more interaction. I put it here. So over here, I might add this interaction. And over here, I might add maybe, this interaction. You get the idea. So I can call interactions from my existing presentation. And like before, all I need to do is go to any one of the interaction slides and just connect them to Zoom or Teams or wherever StreamAlive is supposed to read the audience responses. All the other slides intelligently realize that they need to read from the same presentation as well. And the end result is something like this, where you as a presenter have a talking slide, and then you're going to a listening slide asking people what's the best night sky. They're typing answers in Zoom or Teams, and it's populating on your slide. First time in its 38-year history, a PowerPoint slide will be written by the audience in real time. Never happened before. And I think it changes PowerPoint in some beautiful ways, because finally a slide is not a talking slide. It's a listening slide. I can listen on the slide. I can talk on this slide. And then I can maybe listen on this slide when I ask people a question like, hey, in a sentence or two, how do you find inspiration for the night sky? And they're typing their answers in Zoom or Teams, and that populates this as well. So super excited about this, because everything is running within PowerPoint. And as a presenter, I just run my PowerPoint as before. Darren, you had a question earlier, which I forgot to answer, which is, around the knitting thing over here. I want to show you one thing. I'm just putting up a preview of this presentation, and I'm going to open what is called simulated platform view. So if people are on Zoom, they're going to type in the Zoom chat, as we've been doing so far. But if people were in person, they could still participate in a StreamAlive session, because that's the only singular use case in which we allow for a QR code-based mechanism. Our philosophy is simply one device. If you're on a laptop, don't send a person to their phone. If you're in the room and not on any device, hopefully use the phone in that case. So people will be in a chat in that case, which is accessible through a QR code, and they will be chatting like it's a WhatsApp or a messenger chat. And that chat populates the screen in real time. And you could have a combination of both. Some people in person, some people on Zoom, and so on and so forth. So coming back to the PowerPoint thing over here, super excited about that, because it's going to transform PowerPoint as we know it from a one-way medium into a two-way medium. And right now, we are also busy using AI in some interesting ways. I want to give you a preview of that, and hopefully it works as it's supposed to. I've got a 14-slide deck here on increasing your AI IQ. Let's pretend that I'm giving a workshop on how to become better at AI, right? And at this point, I want help coming up with interesting interactions. So I'm going to use AI on the presentation. I mean, earlier you saw how we used a prompt where we used knitting and stargazing for patient people, and use that as a prompt to come up with interactions. Over here, we're not going to type anything for a prompt. We're going to use AI on the deck that we have existing. Said, have you seen this one before? I think you were there in one of the sessions when we demoed it internally.
I think so, yeah.
Few edits to it. Just gonna. So this is kind of how it looks. It comes up with different questions. Oh, it pulled up the knitting and stargazing thing. I don't know why it pulled up that. Oh, I added it to the knitting and stargazing thing. My bad. But these AI generated questions over here, it basically tells me where I should insert it as well, saying, here's a good question to ask. What is a common AI use at work? And let's put it after slide 5 in the original presentation, right? It says, here's another question. You could ask people, what is their top AI device at home? And after slide 9, let's just look at what slide 9 is. Slide 9 is talking about AI at home. So that's a very good recommendation. It's saying after you talk about AI at home, why not ask people what is their top AI device at home? And if I went with this recommendation, it's a simple case of me moving this here and saying, yeah, I would like to add that particular interaction. You can see it's a little clunky at times. It kind of resets. I'm just going to go back here, add this slide. And I've got a slide over here that basically shows this particular interaction. So it reads the entire deck, comes up with different questions and interactions that I can run at different points. We're still fine-tuning a few of these things, and that's kind of one of the reasons why it's still in private beta. But if any of you would like to test it out, just go to streamerlive.com/listen. There is a preview of what we're building over here. There's a short video. And if you want beta access, just enter your name and the email ID you're using on your Microsoft account, and we will add you to the list for early beta access if you want to play around with that. So that's kind of the direction we're taking in, at which point you have the fun task of deciding if you want to use StreamAlive inside PowerPoint like we just did over here, or if you want to use it if you're on Zoom using the Zoom app like we did not do in this session, but you could simply go out there and add the Zoom app into your Zoom account, or use the web app, which a lot of people still prefer because you're comfortable with web apps, but it's really a personal choice. Neil, I know you prefer the web app for various production reasons. Is that correct? I assume you don't use the Zoom app much, right? And maybe you can shed a little light on what your use cases and how you use StreamAlive.
So I've got there's a few questions as well, just to make you aware of as well, Lux, in the chat. So whilst I'm talking, so I use StreamAlive in a couple of different ways, just like today, where I'll just bring it in via the standard method, just have StreamAlive come in as a bot and join the Zoom events. But I also multi-stream to various different platforms. So I use something called Restream, which multi-streams to YouTube or X or various other people's sites as well. And for that, I use the plugin that StreamAlive has produced for Restream, where I can basically augment all my chat into one single place, because it's difficult to manage multiple different places. And then StreamAlive will actually use the Restream chat function to be able to do that. So if you are going live to multiple places, that's a really handy way of augmenting the chat in a single place, and then using the StreamAlive plugin to do that. And then I'll screen share either a specific monitor with the StreamAlive workflows on, or I'll bring it in as a web widget as well. So there's lots of different ways I do it, but it just depends on my use cases at the time, and obviously if I'm helping clients, how they use it as well. I know Saeed uses it in a couple of different ways also.
For me, it's mostly the using it in Chrome, because I do most of my sessions in Zoom. It just, of course, I could use the plugin for Zoom, but my workflow is just different because I also use like a tool called OBS Studio where I can integrate everything on my camera and stuff. So that's how I use it. But also when working with clients and we want to use something like a StreamAlive, I recommend using the Zoom plugin because it's just easier for them. They don't need like additional, they are not like geeks like me, right? So it's the easiest way to quickly share it and to don't have all the hustle with setting up things in your own tools, etc. So yeah, but I like the Chrome version for my workflow the most.
And thank you for reminding me of the fact that I forgot to mention that, which is that there is a Chrome extension of StreamAlive as well, which is what Neil and Saeed were talking about, which works with things like Restream and even YouTube, and that's what you use for WebEx as well, where it reads the chat on a browser screen and visualizes that chat in real time. So when you choose your platform, it will kind of prompt you on that. There's a direct integration with Zoom, Google Meet, and Teams, but we use a Chrome extension for a few other things like StreamYard and Restream and all of those. And And we use a Streamalive powered chat for in-person and hybrid sessions as well. And I'm just going to switch tracks to the questions over here, just very, very quickly in the questions. First one, just good time for me to test the, all right, we answered that. That was a question for Darren from Said. Can you use Streamalive and not the primary host? Absolutely can. For a meeting, yes. It works with webinar mode as well. And that's a good use case of where the Zoom app works a lot better because it would read whether it's a webinar, it would automatically prompt you on the right things. If you authorize your Zoom account, it makes it a lot easier. But the gist of it is this: Streamalive's bot needs to read what people are typing in the chat. So if you're doing this entirely manually, you would just make sure Streamalive is joining from a host or panelist link, which then allows it to see all of the chat. Or if you use a Zoom app or authorize your account, it would automatically happen. But short answer is yes, it works on webinars. A lot of people use it on webinars. There's also a beta version for Zoom events as well, which works in a very different way, but that works too through the Zoom app. So you could try all of those. Okay? In fact, I think if I share my screen, I'm just going to try this out very quickly since you asked that question. I'm going to change my settings on Zoom. And so Neil, any idea why the settings don't show up? I'm trying to change it to show the screen itself, but now let me do it in a different way. For some reason, it's not doing that. You know that setting where Zoom shows all the stuff that you have in terms of your own screens? I'm trying to pull that up here, but it doesn't allow me to do it. Let's try it one more time. Just going to change this to. Hopefully you can see my screen share over here. I'm just going to spotlight myself so you can see my screen. And you'll see an infinite mirror. Bear with me for a second, but this is what I wanted to show you, which is the apps over here. And this is a Streamalive app. And you'll see on the right-hand side, it allows you to choose the kind of session you have. Is it a meeting or a webinar? Is it an event? And if it's a meeting or a webinar, it's going to pull up your presentations, allow you to use the presentations you have and insert them in over here. So it reads, automatically pulls a link, and a lot of things happen directly over there if you were to use a Zoom app.
Just for clarification, Lux, we're not talking about the format of your event. If it's a webinar or a meeting, we're talking about the Zoom product, right? If it's
right, yes, sorry, I should
clarify
that. Absolutely, yes. Thank you. So it works with Zoom in webinar mode. There is a bit of a long answer to that question. If you have paid app outside of Zoom, will you be charged again? No, absolutely not. It's going to read off your existing Streamalive license. So if you have a Streamalive license, when it pulls it inside the Zoom app, whatever license you already paid for applies. So there's no incremental charge for using the Zoom app. It's just treated as another conduit for using your existing Streamalive subscription. So you can use it on any platform you want. Whatever you've paid for and your limits will apply equally across all of those. Does it work only with PowerPoint or with Keynote or Slide? Unfortunately, only with PowerPoint. And I would love to say it might change in the future, but I don't think it will. And the reason I say that is because unlike PowerPoint, which has a whole add-in ecosystem and an app store, Keynote does not have that. So there's no app ecosystem within Keynote that allows us to do the kind of things that we just showed you on PowerPoint. Google Slides does have an app ecosystem, but to the best of our knowledge, none of those allow an embed like what Streamalive, like what PowerPoint allows. So we actually have a Google Slides add-in, but I'm not a fan of it because what it would do is just put a link to the interaction, and then you click on it within the Google Slide, it will jump out to a separate Streamalive screen and run it, and then you go to Alt Tab and come back here, which is often clunky. I mean, you've seen how many times I've botched up my screen share, and you're going to have two different tabs. It's just difficult to manage. There's no way around it with Google Slides where embeds like what you saw in PowerPoint are supported. We're still researching to see if there's something else we can create which allows an embed, but till that point, it's going to be only PowerPoint. Said, what's AI? AI?
Because you said in your demo slide it was AI IQ. But the I stands for intelligence in both words, so it would be redundant to call it artificial intelligence quotient, right? So it was just, I was just joking, but I was also right about it.
So blocks dropping like Tetris. Can the speed be changed? We have configurable speed for a few of the interactions. I know we wanted to do it for the Tetris one. I'm just not sure on whether we have it right now. I'm just going to go back there and see. So a lot of things, it's a good segue for me to jump into some of these interactions and state that there's a lot of things you can play around with and tweak. So for example, I could have a sound for when the tiles come. I could have a sound for when the tiles disappear and like make it sound like brick falls and things. So a lot of different things you can configure. Do you want to allow multiple answers per people and so on and so forth? Speed is not something configurable in the Tetris one right now. It is configurable in some of the other interactions. Like if you see this one, the transient thoughts, there is a playback speed, slower, normal, faster, but not yet for the Tetris one. You might have it in the future. And coming back here, then the AIQ, Tetris, multiple screen effect. If that is the, I'm assuming you're referring to what when I shared my screen, that is just me butchering how I was sharing my screen. So you would just have the app coming up on the side of the thing. If your question is something else, please feel free to unmute and ask. But the Zoom app would just come up as a sidebar and then you'd pull it. And it's Inception as well. We got a lot of Nolan fans in the house, yes. Super. And as always, I promise that I'll finish ahead of time, and we don't. We got 2 minutes to spare. Thank you, folks, for joining us. Neil, Said, anything to add? Anything we've missed? And thanks again for helping us through this debut session. We're going to do one again day after tomorrow on Teams. So if you want to have the same feeling but on a different platform, feel free to join us for that. And everyone who attended today as well, if you use Teams, I can promise you this is the most fun you've had in a Teams session. And we're going to do the first public Teams demo of Streamer Live day after tomorrow. We use it internally on Teams, but never in a public webinar-like format. That should be fun. Super. Often knit a stargazer. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is beautiful. Thanks, folks.